Hey, this is Color B. I just thought I would make a video. I haven't made one in a while, a public video in a while, anyway. I wanted to talk a little bit. I know sometimes I make fun, silly videos, and those are good. But this one I think I want to make a little bit more serious. I was thinking about how much survivors are afraid or ashamed to talk about their abuse memories with another person. I know a lot of times, for me personally, it was really hard to say the words. It was hard to actually put into words some of the things that had happened to me as a child. So I am going to talk a little bit about that. I'm not going to go into great graphic detail, but I just want to give you a pre-warning that this video may be triggering for survivors. But my point in making this video is that you don't have to be ashamed of talking about your abuse. Your abuse is not who you are. It was what was done to you. It isn't who you are. And you know, the things that were done to you as a child, or even as, you know, a teenager or an adult, you know, those weren't done to you by choice, and you had no choice in the matter. So you have no reason to feel the guilt and the shame that goes along with that. That being said, I know that there is a lot of guilt and shame because the abuse makes us feel so bad inside. A lot of times we have the view of ourselves that we are bad, and I certainly am no stranger to that. I grew up thinking that most of my life that something was terribly defective wrong with me, for the abuse, first of all, to happen to me, and second of all, because it really made me feel that way. You know, it made me feel worthless. It made me feel dirty. There were times that I was called names, and, you know, I tended to believe that because that's what the abuse made me feel like. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. As I said, I'm going to give you a pre-warning that this may trigger, but I'm not going to go into graphic details. I am going to talk about some of my abuse memories, but I'm not going to go into graphic details, okay? My abuse, you know, pretty much happened for the first 17 years of my life, and it started out at a pretty young age. My father actually started sexually abusing me. My first memory is actually at the age of 1. I remember that because I actually remember where we lived at the time, and I remember him picking me up out of my baby crib. So I do remember that. It may have been going on earlier than that. I have no other memory other than from 1 year old. My father actually did sexually abuse me, took my clothes off and sexually abused me with his, you know, penis and his hands at age 1. Those types of molestation continued to happen, but up until I was like 8 years old, and then the abuse actually turned to rape. My father raped me when I was 8 years old, and I remember that, and you know, today even I still remember the pain of that and how devastating that was to me. I mean, the abuse anyway was happening, and you know, that was devastating in itself, but you know, to have somebody who's supposed to love and protect you to you know, do something like that is so hurtful, and not only, you know, physically and emotionally, but I mean just the whole damage that it does to a child. You know, you have somebody that you're supposed to be able to trust, and when they betray the trust in that way, and you know, when you know, I screamed and cried and everything, and you know, said stop, and it didn't matter at all. By the time I was 17, I was out on my own. But my father actually started stalking me, and he would show up different places where I worked. He would follow me, like if I went to a friend's house or whatever, I would see his truck, and he'd be watching me, and it really frightened me. So I took off, and that was the only way that I actually was able to escape him. And that's how the abuse stopped, when I was 17 years old. I never really lived with my father except for twice in my life, and that was when I was first born. The first 6 months of my life was with my mother and my father. My mother left when I was 6 months old, and she left me with my father. So I lived with him, and he actually couldn't take care of me. I was 6 months old, and he couldn't take care of me by himself, so I believe that he actually moved in with his mother, which was my grandmother, and then, he was in and out of the picture after that. He came to take me back to live with him when he got remarried, when I was 8 years old. I think I was 7. It was the summer. I was 7 in the summer, and then I had turned 8, when school started. And I lived with him for like 6 months, and I only lived with him for 6 months because that was actually all that I could take. The abuse really was kicked up a level, quite a few levels to be exact. My stepmother was in and out of mental institutions, so she wasn't much better. I don't know that I've ever talked about her on a video before, but I'll talk a little bit about her. She was quite a bit older than my father, and I believe probably the only reason that he married her was because she had just a tad bit of money, and he wanted it, so he married her, and, that didn't last long. But she had been in and out of mental institutions all of her life. She actually had a grown son that had been taken away from her because she was mental. I don't know what the actual diagnosis of her was, because at that time I was only 7. I do remember visiting her a few times in the mental institutions, but at the time that I went to go live with my father, she lived there. She was not in a mental institution then, for the 6 months that I lived there. And it was really difficult living in the house, not only with my father, but with the abuse, because, then it was happening, 24 hours, a day, that, whenever I was around him, he didn't work. He didn't go to work. He worked odd jobs sometimes, so he was, like, in and out. But, like, he would come up to my room and stuff at night and, be sexual with me. And she actually caught him one time up in my room, and she knew what he was doing. And she called him downstairs, and, of course he jumped and went down there, and I could hear him fighting all night long about that, and she knew. My father wasn't in the house the next day, and my stepmother, I came down the stairs, and she, called me all kinds of names, you tramp, you whore, and here I am, a 7, 8-year-old child. And, she's calling me all kinds of names and telling me that I will never amount to anything. I will be no good. I will be just like my father and nothing but a piece of trash. And, that really stuck with me for the longest time. I really, really felt that way. Because a lot of the things that were happening to me made me feel like that. She said things like, girls like you, deserve to be raped. And that was actually before my father actually physically raped me. He was still molesting me at that point. And I believe that I actually started kind of shutting down. My father had gotten me, he always liked dogs, so he had dogs. We always had rabbits in the backyard and everything. We had like probably 20-something rabbits at one time that, he liked them. And I had picked out a favorite rabbit. It was a white rabbit, and I always liked it. And I had a little puppy. He got me a puppy. It was a little fox terrier. I love that little thing. It was actually one of the things that gave me comfort while I lived there, because I really didn't have friends there. It was in a really, really bad part of the neighborhood, and this was in the early 70s. And, you know, it was just a really not a good area. The schools weren't very good. I was one of 3 white kids in the whole school. So I was definitely the minority there. I used to get beat up and robbed every single day going to school. It was just not a good situation all the way around. I have to laugh because I actually ran away one time or twice, tried to run away, packed some things, and I was going to run away. I actually had to turn around and go back because it was too frickin' unsafe on the streets. And you know, this was like in the early 70s, and it was bad. I mean, it's 1,000 times worse now, that area. There's shootings there every day, and there was a little girl that actually got raped in my I was in 4th grade, and there was a little 3rd grader that actually got raped in the bathroom at school. Some of the kids came down from the high school and raped her. You know, so it was just not a good situation. But anyway, I've kind of got off track a little bit. But my father had gotten me a little puppy, and I just loved this little puppy. Well, my stepmother just didn't. She was the type of person who really complained all the time. Did nothing but bitch and moan about everything. Everything was, you know, bad. She cussed. Oh my gosh, she cussed like up a storm. I had never been around somebody like her at all, you know, growing up. So, like, to go from, you know, a great aunt and uncle that, and I mean, not, to go from their home, which was, you know, a God-fearing home, and, you know, 3 meals a day, and you had a bedtime and everything, to go to, you know, the home with my father, where there was filth everywhere. I mean, we didn't have dinners, we didn't have meals, she didn't cook, she didn't clean. In fact, you know, she kind of demanded that I do some of those things. If I wanted to eat, I had to fix something for myself. You know, just that kind of environment. But she really did not like my dog, my little puppy, for whatever reason. My little puppy dog's name was Teddy. I named it Teddy for, like, teddy bear, because it reminded me of a teddy bear. And I used to take it up to my room at night and try to sleep with it, because, you know, put it in my bed, because it just gave me comfort. It was just one of those things that I really loved. And she, even though they had dogs, and she didn't do anything to those dogs, when it came to my puppy, she would be awful to it. She would kick its bowl across the room and then tell me to get down and clean it up. Not while my father was there, of course. She didn't do that, but she ruled in the house. I wasn't allowed to hug him or anything. You know, and when I was a kid, I still loved my dad, you know. And I didn't think that there was anything wrong. She made something ugly out of me wanting to give my dad a hug. You know, she always made something really bad out of it. You know, and then with him sexually abusing me, it was hard to differentiate for a child. It was almost like Jekyll and Hyde, you know, the good father during the day and the bad father at night. It was it was very conflicting, and I'm sure it is for a lot of kids who are being abused by their parents, or, you know, somebody in their life, like a teacher or something like that, where, you know, you see, like, the Jekyll and Hyde side of them. But anyway, my stepmother actually killed my puppy. She poked its eyes out with a stick, and she broke off 4 of its legs. Of course, I got to see it before it actually died, whimpering in pain, you know, and that was really, really hard as a child to witness something like that.